It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see and the climate's changing. But hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got. One voice together.
The very complex nature of climate change makes climate reporting challenging. From the unusual jargon to vagaries in climate science to complicated maps of climate scenarios to massive reports on impacts, causes, and future predictions, understanding climate change can be daunting for journalists. Yet we continue to see increased interest and dedication to climate change reporting across the Caribbean. Hello, I'm Tekla Fontenade. Let me be the first to welcome you to the official launch and call for entries into the annual Caribbean Media Awards, the CMA. The Caribbean Community Climate Change Center and its funding partner, the European Union, are pleased to join forces with the Caribbean Broadcasting Union as the lead climate change sponsor for this edition of the CMA. We are so excited at the opportunity to award prizes later this year for excellence in climate change reporting to news reporters and other content producers from around the Caribbean. Having worked in climate change communications for over 17 years, this has been one of my personal ambitions to be associated with a climate change-themed prize-giving award for Caribbean media. And it is my pleasure to host this call for entries and happily awake from my long, valuable dream to watch this competition unfold, thanks to the 5Cs and the EU. For this launch, we have a packed agenda, so let's get the ball rolling. Our first speaker is no stranger to the media landscape. Mr. Anthony Green is a member of the board of directors of the CBU. He is also station manager of Starcom Network in Barbados. To get us started, Mr. Green will make welcome remarks. Mr. Green.
Madam Chair, Ms. Tekla Fontenard, Communications Specialist of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. Mr. Luca Trinchieri, Team Leader, Green Deal with the EU Delegation to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, CARICOM, CARIFORUM. Dr. Colin Young, Executive Director of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, 5Cs. Members of the Judges Panel of the 2022 Caribbean Media Awards, Ms. Sonia Gill, CBU Secretary General, and members of the media fraternity. On behalf of the CBU President, Dr. Claire Grant, my fellow CBU directors, and the wider membership of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, it is my pleasure to welcome those of you joining us here at the Caribbean Media Center, as well as via remote link. For nearly 3 decades, the CBU has presented its annual awards competition to celebrate the best of content created by media houses in the Dutch, English, French, and Spanish Caribbean. Originally, the Caribbean Broadcasting Awards were open only to radio and television content, but it has now broadened to become the Caribbean Media Awards to reflect the expansion of the CBU's membership to include digital and print creators under an amendment to the bylaws in 2015. The awards are presented at a gala event during the CBU Annual General Assembly, which usually takes place in mid-August. The awards show, presented as a live media event, is transmitted by all participating CBU members on their television and digital platforms, as well as by CBU affiliate, the Caribbean Media Corporation, CMC, which operates the pan-regional media service CaribVision. The CMA is unique in that it offers winning media professionals high-value rewards, including recognition by their peers at the regional level, along with the trophy and also their cash prizes as well. In addition, the winning entries are featured on CaribVision in the months following the awards presentation. The competition has guarded its credibility by only presenting awards to deserving content. Content not up to the threshold for an award, but still worthy of note, receives a certificate of recognition. Now, the experienced and expert panel of judges are practitioners and subject matter experts actively engaged in a broad span of media and communication production and education, and represent multiple countries and territories. This year, the judges hail from Jamaica, Barbados, Montserrat, Trinidad, and Tobago. And we are grateful for them lending their experience, skills, and time to this worthy initiative. Thank you. Being so credible and well established on the media sector calendar, the CMAs are extremely popular throughout the region. And for the most recent competition, more than 300 entries were received from 26 media houses. And of these, 9 were not members of the CBU. We expect that to grow. Over the years, CBU has collaborated with international development partners, regional agencies, and commercial entities to promote better quality and greater quantity of particular types of content. And in particular, in the themed categories, CBU works with sponsors to offer opportunities for media professionals to focus on particular types of content. The CBU also draws on experts to assist with detailing the technical criteria associated with the particular categories. And this innovative approach, I must say, has been welcomed by partners for the way in which it fosters media attention on specific issues relevant to the well-being and development of the Caribbean society. And we are happy that, as media, we can play our part. This year, we are particularly grateful for the partnership being celebrated today with the Global Climate Change Alliance Plus initiative, enhancing climate resilience in CARIFORUM countries. It is through collaborations with international projects and regional entities such as these that the CBU members continue to fulfill the mandate to support development of the Caribbean and its peoples at home and in the diaspora through the media and communication sector. We are happy to be working with you, the EU and the 5 Cs, to promote understanding and action on one of the most important matters of our era. We also look forward to seeing you at the award ceremony scheduled for Tuesday, August 15th this year. Yes, allow me to put that in. At the 54th CBU Assembly. And the assembly is going to be hosted, and I know they would want me to put this in, is going to be hosted in Antigua. Antigua and Barbuda Broadcasting Service, ABS, will be taking the lead in collaboration with the Antigua and Barbuda government. And please be assured that the CBU welcome in St. John's, in Antigua St. John's, will be as warm as it is today at this launch event. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Our next speaker is the Executive Director of the 5 Cs, Dr. Colin Young. Dr. Young has served as a lecturer at universities in Belize and the United States in the past, and has held senior executive positions with the government of Belize. Dr. Young is passionate about climate change, and I must add, he's not shy to speak to the media. Since assuming his role as Executive Director at the 5 Cs 3 years ago, he has given countless interviews to the media in the Caribbean and further afield. It is my distinct honor to welcome Dr. Young to address you.
Mr. Luca Trincheri, team leader with Deal Partnership, and other members of the EU delegation to Barbados, the OECS and CARIFORUM countries, Mr. Anthony Green, member of the board of directors of the CBU, and CEO of Starcom Network, other members of the board of directors of the CBU, Ms. Sonia Gill, Secretary General of the CBU, Mr. Ron Goodridge, Senior Environmental Officer in the Ministry of Environment and National Beautification, other Government of Barbados representatives, staff members of the 5Cs, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good morning and welcome. It is my distinct pleasure to deliver these welcome remarks on behalf of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, known as the 5Cs, at the launch of the Climate Change Team Media Awards that will shine a bright light on the best climate change media content creations for 2022. Climate change is an existential threat for the Caribbean. We are at the front lines of a worsening global climate crisis that is already impacting lives and livelihoods across our region. According to the Emergency Events Database, the Caribbean has been impacted by 70 named storms affecting 19 member countries between 1980 and 2019 alone, causing loss of lives and economic damage and losses of over 145 billion US dollars, with over 100 billion in damages happening over the last decade alone, primarily from Category 5 hurricanes. Our housing, utility, agriculture, tourism, and transport sectors are repeatedly impacted from these events. Forecast models predict that an even more drastic increase in economic losses and damages of up to 26 billion US dollars per year by 2030 and 53 billion US dollars per year by 2100 if the world fails to keep global temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius. As hurricanes get stronger and more deadly, as droughts get longer and more devastating, as floods become more frequent and destructive, and as sea levels get higher and oceans get warmer and harmful to our coral reefs, it is easy to understand why we say that climate change is an existential threat to our way of life in the region. The Caribbean, it's no secret, is one of the most vulnerable areas in the world to the effects of climate change. In fact, climate change impacts are the single greatest impediment to the region's sustainable development aspirations. It also contributes significantly to the region's debt. Over 50% of the Bahamas' debt, for example, is attributable to hurricanes over the last 7 years alone. In Dominica, over 80% of its debt is directly related to climate change events. Belize, on an average year without a hurricane, suffers losses equivalent to 7% of its GDP from climate-related disasters. Despite these startling realities, however, the level of awareness of climate change and its impacts and the level of attribution of observed impacts to climate change by our citizens of the region remain shockingly low. The existential threat of climate change that is espoused by our political leaders in every international forum is not echoed by our citizens in our cities, our communities, and villages across the region. Climate change was ranked fourth by respondents who participated in a knowledge, attitude, and practices survey across 5 Caribbean countries conducted by the 5Cs in 2021. Behind inequality as number 1, access to affordable health care number 2, droughts and insufficient water, when our citizens were asked what was the most serious problem facing their country. This is despite the fact that 88% of these same respondents indicated that they are experiencing hotter days and nights, and 81% of them noticing that there's a change in the dry and wet seasons, and that 70% of them are experiencing drought and water shortage, for example. The same CAP survey also indicated that 60% of those surveyed wanted more climate change information, and that their preferred sources of such information are primarily the internet, mass media, and radio talk shows. We are pursuing a multimedia approach to build awareness and that will embrace local stakeholders, traditional media, and internet-based platforms in an effort to reach a diverse audience. It is clear that the media is not only an important stakeholder in the climate change discourse, but that it also has a duty and a responsibility to ensure that it does its part in educating our citizens about one of the most important and consequential issues of our time. The media has always informed and educated and shaped public opinion on a range of issues affecting our people. The same must be true with climate change. However, for this to be effective, we must ensure that our media personnel understand climate change and its complexities so that the issues can be adequately analyzed and can be accurately and easily reported and communicated to our citizens. The climate scientists and technicians, as we all agree, often find it challenging to communicate climate change in easy-to-understand language. However, through employing various modalities, the media can put together powerful stories to communicate even the most complicated climate change issues to our people. At the 5 Cs, we recognize that analyzing and reporting climate change-related issues accurately and in an engaging manner to a diverse audience is sometimes challenging, especially over numerous multimedia platforms. As such, we realize that a deeper and more coordinated approach between Caribbean technocrats, climate practitioners, scientists, and the media is warranted if we are to succeed in improving the awareness of our citizens to climate change and its effects, and most importantly, if we are to influence their behaviors to mitigate or adapt to the worsening impacts of climate change. In this regard, the 5 Cs in 2022 signed a master service agreement with the Caribbean Broadcasting Union to cement a strategic partnership that includes providing a range of media services that are critical to assisting us with driving the climate change agenda and build a better alliance with Caribbean media. As part of the EU GCCA project being implemented by the 5 Cs in CARIFORUM states, various target groups are expected to participate in climate actions as part of the Time is Running Out climate literacy campaign, which we hope will engender an attitude of environmental consciousness to reduce the observed climate apathy and increase climate literacy among our people. The media plays an indispensable role in helping us achieve these outcomes. In this context, the EU GCCA plus Time is Running Out campaign hopes to execute an active program with the media over the next year of the project. The program will include providing media sensitization sessions, press tours, supporting media delegations to attend and participate in international climate change conferences, media invitations to cover key events and activities, and of course, launching the Media Awards for covering climate-related content. While we acknowledge that covering climate change is not easy, and some may say not even sexy or sensational or even newsworthy by some, we recognize that many reporters, traditional media houses, and social media content creators continue to develop an interest in covering climate-related stories. Increasingly, they are leveraging strategic opportunities to build news content and knowledge products that are being shared with their audiences and followers across a range of platforms. We want to encourage this interest and incentivize this behavior. Accordingly, we have joined forces with the CBU to celebrate the best in climate-related news reporting and other climate change media-related content as part of their annual Caribbean Media Awards. The CBU is a valued partner in this initiative. They'll manage the Climate Change Theme Media Awards given their long-standing experience honoring journalists, reporters, and other media practitioners over the last 30 years, as you heard. With these Climate Change Theme Awards, we hope to see in the future boosted coverage on climate change that is rich, evidence-based, innovative, effective, and impactful. According to the CBU, the Media Awards, an approach that will be utilized has, I quote, helped to spur content creators at media houses across the region to research, produce, and publish content suitable for such designated CMA categories throughout the year in order to qualify for entry to the competition, end quote. Today's launch is the official call for entries into the Media Awards competition. We have 12 categories in 4 different media platforms: radio, TV, digital, and print. We hope the media personnel throughout the region will consider competing for these prestigious awards. We are hoping that these awards will achieve the following outcome. 1, more evidence-based news reporting on climate change, better engagement with the region's journalists, reporters, and other media operatives to ramp up sustained news coverage on climate-related issues, increase visibility for the 5 Cs as the CARICOM mandated institution to lead and coordinate the Caribbean's response to climate change, while also showcasing our partner, the European Union, who is making this initiative possible. And finally, to increase the awareness of our citizens to climate change and its effects to improve resilience across the region. This call is open to all mainstream reporters, journalists, news camera crews, media production companies, and social media influencers who are citizens of CARIFORUM member states. That includes all of CARICOM, plus Cuba and the Dominican Republic. Our first media sensitization session starts tomorrow in Barbados. This will be the first in a series that we will be holding across more countries in CARIFORUM this year as part of our commitment to building the capacity of journalists, reporters, and communications personnel working in climate-sensitive sectors. We encourage the media from Barbados to join us at this event. Tomorrow's session will expose media personnel to broad topics on climate change and will include varied types of instruction, fact-sharing, and practical exercises. We hope that the session will equip participants with first-hand experiences, information, and tools to champion climate change stories and improve the frequency and accuracy of climate change reporting. We hope that it will amplify how human interest angles elaborate the emotional side to convey stronger stories to our people. And we will demonstrate how to break down scientific facts into practical climate solutions for varied audiences. And finally, provide examples of how climate-related stories can be framed to help guide local actions and improve public knowledge. We are excited about this partnership with the CBU. And we're even more excited to see the climate change-related content that will be created from across the region as the media personnel compete for these prestigious awards. The 5 Cs stands ready to assist the media personnel to better understand climate change and its complexities. Our experts stand ready to assist you in any way possible to ensure that the media become a powerful champion in promoting climate change awareness across the region. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeYoung. More sobering statistics on climate change impacts on our vulnerable Caribbean countries. I hope that I see even more media champions emerging next year as we continue to rally the climate change agenda. Our feature address will be delivered by Mr. Luca Trinchieri, representing the European Union delegation to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, the OECS, CARICOM, and CARIFORUM. As a global actor, the European Union contributes significant funds to the Caribbean region's efforts to enhance climate resilience and adaptation. The 5 Cs and the CBU are extremely grateful for the EU's support to this edition of the Caribbean Media Awards, and it is my privilege to introduce Mr. Chinquere.
Members of the panel, members of the CBU board, our partner, Dr. Colin Young, Executive Director of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is our pleasure at the European Union delegation in Barbados to support the staging of this year's Caribbean Media Awards in partnership with the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center and the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. And we are especially delighted to be directly associated with the 14 categories that focus on climate change. And I say this for two reasons. Climate change is one of the central themes of the partnership between the Caribbean and the European Union. It is one issue where Caribbean and European leaders share the same ambition and sense of urgency. Over the past years, we've been together in ensuring that the fight for climate action remains on the front burner in our countries, in our regions, and globally. We've seen this partnership forging year after year on the stage of global climate negotiations, from the historic achievement of the Paris Agreement in 2015 to the most recent creation of a fund for loss and damage and increase of funds for mitigation in COP27 in Egypt last year. But there's a second element, and Dr. Colin Young has referred to it in his intervention. A bit more than a year ago, the 5Cs has conducted a climate literacy survey in 5 Caribbean countries as part of our joint project on enhancing climate resilience in the region. Looking through the results of the survey, one was particularly striking, and you referred to it. Across the participating countries, only 10% of the respondents believe global warming and climate change is among the most serious problems affecting their countries. And this tells us one thing. There's a strong need for knowledge, awareness on climate change, its causes, its impact, and how to adapt to it. And you, the media, have a pivotal role to play in educating the public about how climate change impacts their lives and livelihoods. Through your platforms, you help to shape the narrative on the causes, consequences, and countermeasures associated to climate change. And through your reporting, you bring reality and accountability to a topic that for some remains only a concept. This is a necessary first step in promoting the attitudinal and positive behavioral change that are vital in climate change campaigns. The European Union, therefore, trusts that through our active engagement with the 5Cs and the CBU on this Caribbean Climate Change Media Awards, we can help to boost climate change coverage while deepening our relationship with the Caribbean media, ultimately helping people understand better this phenomenon. And of course, we hope this engagement will extend beyond climate change to include coverage on other interrelated elements of our partnership with the Caribbean. I'm talking, for instance, about the work that we're doing with 5Cs and other partners on climate resilience. We do not just come in following the devastation of hurricanes, as was the case in Dominica, Barbuda, or Cuba, but we're also here to assist the region in structural climate mitigation and adaptation. I'm also talking about the work we are doing to address challenges related to health and climate change, to promote circular economy, to advance the use of renewable energy, to invest in sustainable development, in sustainable waste management, and to protect the environment and biodiversity. Such actions are also the foundation of our newest demand-driven comprehensive climate program, Euroclima, which is starting this year in the Caribbean and under which public awareness, education, and knowledge management are key. We are in a new phase in the relationship between the Caribbean and the European Union, a phase where your priorities converge naturally with the European global efforts of advancing a green, digital, and sustainable global economic recovery, which is what we call the Global Gateway Strategy. Now, in the Caribbean, The Global Gateway will seek to enhance climate resilience, support the green transition, support jobs and growth, promote trade and investments, and build inclusive and secure societies where institutions are accountable and no one is left behind. You will be hearing more from us on this new exciting partnership in the months ahead, and we count on you, the media, as partners in development to support our efforts in sensitizing the region on the essence of the relationship between the Caribbean and the European Union. Now, coming back to today's launch of the Caribbean Climate Change Media Awards, we hope that you will maintain keen interest in climate change and broader development issues that are transformational and vital for this region. I encourage you to submit nominees for these awards, and I wish all the entrants the best of luck during the judging process. Thank you.
Thank you to the EU and, of course, to Mr. Trincheri and the rest of the EU delegation. Finally, we have Miss Sonia Gill, Secretary General of the CBU. I'm sure no stranger to the media landscape. Ms. Gill has the most exciting and expectant news of today's agenda. She will present details of the award. Ms. Gill?
I want to say a sincere and deep thank you to our chair, who has been the crux of the matter when it comes to being here today. To Mr. Luca Trinchieri, the team lead of the Green Deal with the EU delegation, Dr. Young, Dr. Cullen Young, ED of the 5Cs, the representatives of the Barbados government and its agencies who are here with us, the members of our judging panel, critical to this process, Dr. Marshall, Dr. Weeks, Mr. Maxime, and those joining us remotely, Mr. Millington, and our Chief Judge, Beverly Sinclair. To the colleague on the board of the CBU, Mr. Anthony Green, thank you so much for that welcome. And to our CBU member organizations who are participating in studio and through the wonder of technology remotely, I say thank you so much for being part of this. As my hype man said just now, I do have the most exciting part of today. What are you entering? And who can enter? So let me tell you, first of all, which media are eligible. As mentioned before, all CBU member countries in the Dutch, English, French, and Spanish Caribbean and territories are eligible to enter. So we cover the entire CARIFORUM region and a little bit more. We also are accepting entries for these climate-themed awards in all the platforms under the awards. So that includes radio, television, print, and digital media. What are the categories? Well, you've heard a little bit about them. I'm going to give you a little more detail now. We have 5 main formats that we are seeking entries in. Documentary. We are looking for entries on television, radio, and digital. In the format of news item, all platforms may enter: television, radio, digital, and print. In the format of investigative report, again, all platforms: television, radio, digital, and print. We are, of course, looking forward to public service spots, which we know are critical to raising awareness, and our traditional platforms, television and radio, may enter here. And just for this project, and just because of the support of these partners, we are adding a format that we have not had in the CBU Media Awards before, opinion column. So we are looking forward to having entries from these content creators who are not strictly journalists in the technical sense of the term, but who are very influential in sharing information and in changing minds. So we're looking forward to the opinion column print. What's the criteria? Pretty broad. As we've heard already, there's a lot happening when it comes to climate change, particularly with our partners. So we're looking within those formats just described for content that highlights climate change impacts, whether at the community level, at the local level, national, or regional. And we are looking forward to all kinds of creative content that showcases Caribbean actions and solutions, helping to adapt to and mitigate climate change. What are you going to win? The usual recognition of your peers at the awards ceremony that you heard about before. Of course, you'll have something substantial in terms of that trophy if you are at the level of an award winner, or if you're just being recognized for content of note, you will receive a certificate. And again, we're being very innovative this time around. We are, for the first time, offering fellowships to institutions in the winner's home countries or territories, where they will get to engage with those on the front line of climate change adaptation, mitigation, and response. And there will be a bursary that will assist with actual creation of content coming out of that fellowship experience. So we're talking about sustainability of the results, even through a fairly narrow strategy of an awards competition. But we have a broader view. How do you enter? Well, the CBU's website is your one-stop shop for the rules, which give a lot more detail of what I've just described in summary, as well as the actual entry form. And when you have the entry form complete and your entry available, we accept electronic submissions by the means, again, described on the entry form. And the main email address that you will be submitting to is cbumediaawards@caribroadcastunion.org. What's your timelines? Well, we know for media people, timing is the critical point. As of today, entries are open. We close the entry window at midnight Eastern Caribbean time on April the 12th. And in that time, our judges will be working very hard afterwards to ensure that on August 15th, in St. John's, Antigua, we will be getting together, all of us will be getting together for the presentation of awards and certificates in the 14 categories of the Climate Change Themed Awards, which are part of this year's CBU Caribbean Media Awards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gill. So we've come to the end of the formal presentation section of this launch. Now we want to open the floor to take questions from the press specific to the announcement of the awards or anything that may have come out about climate change that you'd like to ask Dr. Young. If we can also take questions from people who are not from the press. So we will take questions both from people in our studio as well as who are online. Okay? So anyone who wants to start from the studio, there's a standing mic right there. Please go to the mic. If you have any questions, if there's anybody from the press, I know UETV is there. If you have any questions, we let the press answer us first. And we take questions. We'll do a rotation between those who are in studio and those who are online. And we can take questions either about the awards or about anything else on climate change that's bothering you.
What, what in part are you hoping to have with the revision of these awards, and what level of buying are you anticipating with the awards as well?
All right, so I'll answer the latter half in terms of what we're expecting in terms of buy-in. Last year, even coming out of the pandemic, we had more than 380 entries. We are expecting to top that this year. So we realize that our members, 36 of them in 20 countries, plus those who are part of our media sector, are very interested in the awards generally, not just because of the prizes and the recognition, but also it is an opportunity to get the content that they're creating out to broader audiences. One of the innovative elements of the CBU Caribbean Media Awards is that the prize-winning content gets retransmission on the platforms of our affiliate, the CaribVision, run by CMC, as well as our members. And there's usually quite a bit of interest in giving greater life and greater visibility to that. So that's one of the major impacts, that this quality content, both in terms of the subject matter as well as the way in which it is created, gets further exposure to the audiences. That's one thing that we're looking forward to from the CBU end. But I'll allow Dr. Young to speak to the other aspects of why they chose this particular strategy.
Simply put, as was indicated from the surveys that were undertaken, there is a fair amount of apathy and a very low level of engagement with citizens across the region on matters related to climate change. And so we thought long and hard, and TECLA has been instrumental in this process, to find the best strategy, the best approach to maximize the resources that we have to reach the most people as possible. And hands down, I think we found the absolutely best partner in the CBU. There's absolutely no other entity in the region that has a track record of performance like they do, and that has the reach that they do, and that has the prestigious awards that I think journalists and media personnel are well aware of. And the integrity that is part of the process, I think, is both important for us as well as for the EU. So we felt that this partnership and the way and the approach that they have utilized, that have been tried and tested, will allow us to accomplish our objectives of ensuring that we get this diversity of views and content from our media personnel across the region, which ultimately we hope, they say that the quality of the cake is always in the tasting, right? And so what we hope is that when we do another survey, after this engagement, that we are seeing that the awareness of our people is increasing. But obviously, this has to be a continuing effort. You just can't do it once and hope that it magically, takes 10% up to 30% or to 40% in terms of engagement. And so I think the lessons that come out of this, because the monitoring and evaluation is going to be an important part, is going to help us inform how we design and work on future campaigns along with the CBU.
Also, the CBU has indicated, based on their data, that when they carry a theme for the awards, you have more journalists driven to write stories about the theme?
I'd
Next
like
question.
to state, my name is Sharon Marshall, and I'd like to commend the CBU and its partners on the strategic effort, because there is no strategic communication without measurement. So you've started with a baseline, and it gives you the opportunity to see if the needle has been moved through this intervention. However, I wanted to ask the Secretary General specifically if CBU has done any work with its member stations to enhance the quality. She's mentioned the expectation that the numbers will increase, but has there been any specific intervention with the member countries to say what the judges are looking for and how the media houses can select the best of what they have to offer?
Part of the practice of the CBU over the years, beginning in 2014, is that after every awards competition, we actually have a report and a workshop. So the judges' findings are not just of who's the best and who deserves a trophy, but the findings about the challenges that they discovered in the content, as well as the strengths that they've seen in the content, are actually shared with the members every year after the competition. We also, in that report, put the data, not only of number of entries, but where they're coming from. Who seems to be interested in particular themes, and also technical issues that the judges have determined are affecting the different formats, the different types of content, etc. We also use that information to upgrade and make sure that the competition continues to be relevant. So yes, there is annual work with the members. The other part of this entire project that we are really grateful for is that these trainings, which begin tomorrow, which will be climate focused, will offer an opportunity for members in the host countries, and I believe there's going to be at least 5 of these trainings in CARIFORUM countries, will actually give them an opportunity to deepen and even think a little bit about what entries will they be creating this year for the next round of the competition, with the support, of course, with our partners once again. I hope that answers the question.
Any other questions? I'm so happy to see veteran journalist Sharon Marshall. Since I was a young girl, I remember her with the CBU. Anyone else? Mr. Maxime?
My name is Steve Maxime. I am fortunate enough to be on the panel of judges this time around. But I just want to mention an observation. It has to do with the DICAO continuum. I don't know how many of you are subscribers to that continuum, that there's data, there's information, there's knowledge, there's understanding, and then there's wisdom. And in order for people to make wise choices, they must have had exposure to the data, the information, but there must be a knowledge shift, a knowledge transfer. And unfortunately, over the years, and I've been part of the process, we have been sharing information. Information never solves a problem yet, right? Informed people solve problems. So what we're trying to do now is make that shift from information, which is a document, you know. I have been a field officer for many, many years. I've gone to farms where the problem I was sent to solve is in a document, you know, on the farmer's desk or on the farmer's vehicle. So information in and of itself doesn't really solve problems. So we are trying to make that shift now to get people from exposure to the information, which, I mean, I've been part of the process for the last 20-something years, so I know that the information is out there, and I'm sure Dr. Young would agree with me. But what has been missing, and that's why it didn't come up in the KPs, because that shift of knowledge where the people, the public personalized, internalized that information that is floating out there, because everybody can code the statistics. And the fact that you found people had drought and water scarcity at it, higher up on the list than climate change, tells you that shift, where you can take that information and make it part of your own knowledge platform so that you then recognize, you have the understanding that this is climate related, and then you'll be able to make some wise choices. So I just thought I'd make that intervention.
Yes, that's an important intervention too, because that's why, based on that baseline data, we have designed a climate literacy campaign, because it's not just now we want climate action. So the point is really taken that it's not just knowledge, information is everywhere. When I studied comms, they would say information is everywhere, but news is something different. So likewise, yeah, that we don't want just to have knowledge, but we want action. Dr. Young wants to answer a little bit. Give us a couple of questions.
Thank you for raising that very important point. Especially in today's day and age when there is often information overload, right, and misinformation, what we find is that the public struggles to know what is real from what is not. And ultimately, what we've found in our work, and we work across CARIForum, but particularly in CARICOM, and the center has raised and invested over $280 million across CARICOM. So we have some experience working on the ground in our member states, building climate resilience. And one of the things we find out surprisingly is that a lot of people are not very interested in most of the information that is out there and data and statistics about climate change. They want to know how it's impacting their daily lives and what is it that they can do. So for example, if the farmer who him or her cannot afford to lose a single crop to drought, he or she wants to know whether or not they should be planting at the time when they normally plant, or whether they should be delayed by some period of time. And so this is the challenge. I think we have an obligation to provide information and data to change attitudes and behaviors. But ultimately, we have to also be very, very mindful of what the practitioners on the ground want, and to provide that data in a way that is easy to understand and without all of the complexities and jargons that normally characterize our intervention. And I think if we can do that, we would be well on the way of changing attitudes and behaviors one person at a time. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yvonne Weeks. I'm an educator and writer, and I am also the co-editor of a book called Disaster Matters. And I hope I get the privilege of actually handing copies to you, gentlemen. One of the things that concerns me actually is that we're not starting with our children, and we're not providing information in a way which is accessible to children and young people. And I feel that the media must play a role in that kind of intervention, and that when you think about content creation and even the way technology is used, so it's attractive to young people. So I want to share with you that I recently contributed 1,600 books across the region about disasters, which were based on hurricanes, earthquake, drought, and volcano. I'm a product of climate change because I'm from Montserrat originally. But I really think that if we could really put a mission out there for journalists to think about how they are producing material that attracts the 6- and 7-year-old. My granddaughter put up a sign, there's too much, people throw away garbage too much, we have to protect the earth. She's only 7. So I hope that this year we will see entries that do attract the younger age group, the youth, the teenagers, who are very much not aware of disaster and climate, so that the kind of literacy that we talk about, it also includes climate literacy. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone online has a burning question, or even if it's not burning? Okay, so while we wait, Dr. Young, you would like to? Yes, so Doctor, yeah. Yes. So we have recently launched a different campaign on climate and health, and it specifically targets young people, aged I think 9 and above, in which we will be calling them to send in poems, a selfie, write a letter to your prime minister about what's hurting you about climate change, some really innovative ideas. So this was a campaign that was developed by one of my colleagues in my unit, and we launched it in Belize last week. A lot of the information in the end will be like social media driven, and then we will be rolling this out over the next year as well. So, yeah.
And also to say, first, I appreciate the intervention. I think we need to do a lot more with our young people, and not only because they are, by large measure, the largest demographic across the region. One of the features of the Caribbean region is that we generally have a population pyramid that is long at the bottom and small at the top, meaning that people under 25 makes up the vast majority of our populations. But also because when we do a good job in educating our children, we are getting some extra because they help to educate their parents when they go home. And so the center has actually a long history of engaging young people. Back in 2009, we had developed a curriculum for 1.5 to stay alive for primary schools across the region. And so, in a sense, to reach children at their level, to educate them about climate change and its effects. Obviously, if you saw the CAP surveys, we have a lot of work to do. But increasingly, even in international fora, you see youth's voices being amplified, not just as a token, but really for them to be involved at a seat at the table. Because imagine that, a bunch of older folks like myself planning the future without having 60% of our population at the table. And as the trauma, the experience that they go through each and every year, experiencing hurricanes and droughts. I've read about stories, including from some of my own nieces and nephews, how scared and traumatized they are because they've heard the winds when a hurricane is passing and that horrible sound. And so the mental health aspect and the anxiety that our young people are having, it is one of the least research areas in the region, but it's absolutely important that we engage them and that we provide them with the space so that we can hear their voices about what is important to them about climate change, including, and this is absolutely important, including holding public officials accountable. Because when you ask our young people, as we've asked, they feel powerless and they feel as though what they have to say is not going to be taken into account by those who are elected to serve everybody. And I think we really are doing a disservice if the longer we take in terms of trying to bring these young people to the table in a consequential way so that we can listen and incorporate what they're saying in our strategies and our decision making. So thank you for doing that and for sharing your book widely. But the last point I want to make is that obviously this is everybody's business. The schools, the teachers, the parents, our partners, our donors, the media, everyone. Together we can start to make progress, even if it's small at time, but nothing happens overnight.
Allow me just to reinforce. I think what the point you've raised is extremely important, and I think the work that FICs are doing on this is truly commendable. Maybe just a piece of complementary information from the European Union. We have actually produced a short series of books for schools. We've started handing them over in a number of countries. Barbados was the first one, I believe. copies were handed over to the Ministry of Education. And one of the stories is about climate change, precisely with the objective to sensitize young children on everyday life issues that affects them, but ultimately, as you're hinting, trying to forge their instinct to react and to take action about this. So just that.
Okay, last call for questions or comments. You want to do that now? Okay, so we'll invite Dr. Weeks to present copies of a book to the panelists. And yes,
Sonia. I don't have 3 copies, but I will rectify that. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. You're welcome. So these are there are 51 writers in this book from 19 Caribbean countries. It's a pan-Caribbean text in that we try to make sure that we included French writers, Spanish, Dutch. So I hope you enjoy the book. It's specially designed for secondary school students, and we're about to do a second reprint of the book, and we're following up with workshops across the region as well. Okay, thank you very much.
okay. So I will say now that we have come to the end of our launch of the call for entries to this year's edition of the CMAs into the CMA. We want to remind journalists, reporters, other members of the media, and social media content creators that you can help us increase climate action, not just by understanding the scientific nuances and debates, but also acknowledging that climate change also affects you too. Climate change is personal to all of us. The stories can also come from your nieces, it can come from your nephews, it can come from your grandchildren, and it can also come from yourself. We look forward to your submission, and we also look forward to increased climate change reporting in the coming years. Remember, our everyday choices determine whether we are part of the climate change problem or part of the solution. Time is running out. Let us do our part. Thank you.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see, and the climate's changing. But hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got.